2022 Year of the Ecological Garden, Episode 2, Telling the Story of Ecological Gardening. I've been talking about sustainability in native plants for a while, and there's a few things that I've learned to approach differently. One of the big ones is, rather than defending the native plant and ecological gardening movement, I prefer to flip the narrative right from the start, framing native species as the default for creating gardens, and that there needs to be a specific reason for including a species that isn't native to the region or the continent. There can be good reasons. Growing local food is one that influences plenty of my personal choices, but we rarely subject conventional landscape practices and garden plant selections to the same requirements for justifying their inclusion as we often do native species. A lot of garden plants get by in the momentum of familiarity more than anything else. There is room in most gardens for a few exotic species. They just need to be the special treats, kind of like the difference between eating a steady diet of salty fried foods and enjoying a bowl of your favorite chips now and then because they bring you joy. In moderation, they become something special rather than lost amongst everything else, and mostly just leaving us feeling plunky and guilty. Something else to keep in mind is that those of us who are talking about the ecological potential of our green spaces aren't the only ones telling a story of what to expect around our homes and in our communities. Over the last few decades, the horticultural industry has been drifting further and further towards ecologically bereft, hard surface, and minimal diversity landscapes. But, like most industries, a couple of years of global pandemic has made a lot of us learn how to pivot what we do and how we do it. Something that learning to dance taught me was that to successfully pivot without falling or flailing, you need to find your center. So what is at the center of urban and suburban gardening? I used to say that what the horticultural industry sells is pretty, but that's not quite it. What we really sell is feel good. We know that bird and invertebrate species are in catastrophic decline, mostly from land use change and agricultural practices which aren't in the direct hands of gardeners, but the decline itself is something that those of us who garden can do something about. Growing public awareness about how biologically limiting a lot of conventional plant choices, maintenance practices, and hard surface-centered designs are, along with the ecological and carbon costs of extraction and transportation of bulk materials, are looming challenges that the horticultural and landscaping industry will be facing in the very near future. To be relevant rather than vilified in the coming years, horticulture will need to make the biggest pivot yet, an industry-wide shift away from moving materials around and toward providing guidance, local knowledge, and specialized care. Sometimes the talk of rewilding or shifting to plant-centered and ecological landscapes is interpreted as a threat to the horticulture and landscaping world, which does have pretty deep roots in colonization of land and the displacement of native life. But the reality is that, if anything, we'll need more people to do this work, not fewer. Centering ecological health and resilience doesn't eliminate the need for hands-on expertise. Getting away from bulk transportation doesn't eliminate the need for labor. Local materials still have to be placed where they are needed within the landscape. Moving away from maintenance that fights against ecosystem progression doesn't eliminate the need for care. There aren't a lot of large herbivores or beavers in most human-centric communities, and seasonal burning doesn't fit well in most suburbs. We'll still need to be the source of the types of disturbance that most thriving, diverse ecosystems require. What is currently being spent on heavy equipment, fuel, materials, transportation, and generic maintenance of a very limited range of plant species can go a long way when directed towards living wages and locally grown plants. When caring for local spaces can provide a livelihood level of income, truly local expertise can become a reality. When the supply chain is short enough that you can know everyone in it, ensuring that it doesn't rely on exploitation actually becomes possible, as does the reuse and cycling of materials. Ecological gardening isn't an idea that home gardeners need to be sold on anymore. Enough are already on board that it's a service provision and plant availability that is falling behind demand. Tending Nature, Native Plants and Every Gardener's Role in Fostering Biodiversity, an online series by Ohio State University, has had over 7,000 people registered to participate in this 6-session series. Doug Tallamy, with his message of reversing biodiversity loss by filling our landscapes with native species, was one of the most popular garden speakers last year. Talks given by Robin Wall Kimmerer, with her message of caring for the rest of nature as the rest of nature cares for us. Fill up, add more spaces, and fill up again. In an era of accelerating ecosystem breakdown, doing something to reverse the decline while also supporting local livelihoods and creating spaces to reconnect with the rest of nature is a valuable service. Pair that with supporting local economies and eliminating exploitation of workers and ecosystems, and service providers have something to offer that clients can feel really deeply good about. And we like to spend our money on the things that make us feel good. Annual spending in the ornamental horticultural industry in Canada was over $8 billion per year, even before the pandemic renewed many people's interest in the green spaces around our homes and in our communities. That's $8 billion every year that can support local economies and the local ecosystem in a regenerative rather than exploitative fashion. And it comes with flowers and butterflies. That's something we can all feel really good about.